Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
This is very real.
Fantastic.
This drug is dangerous.
Wrong.
You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Shut your little punk ass up.
But the more you hate me, the more you will learn.
Welcome to episode 40 of the Autoflower podcast, everybody. I am Chad Dulaney, your host with the most dad bod fat. I'd like to start the episode off by giving a huge shout out to the new Patreon supporters, John, Your Dad Grows, Sam, KS Canna Cowboy, I think that's for Kansas, yeah, Frederick, Michael, Red-Eyed Tony, and my personal friend, two-time podcast guest, and Gromy Roger, known on Instagram as Green Thumb Grower 81. Thank you all for signing up to support the work that I'm doing. Our Patreon community is 60 people strong now, and if you've been tinkering with the idea of joining the Flowering Club to get access to free tester seeds every 3 months, there are 23 US spots left and 23 Canadian spots left. So I've also received a few messages from down under about giving Australia access, but I'll need to look into the laws and shipping costs and stuff like that. But just know that I hear you, and I will look into it possibly for the future. I unfortunately can't guarantee it'll be in the near future, but I will look into it for you guys. The reason that I put a cap on the flowering tiers that do exist is because I don't want to bite off more than I can chew and end up like slinging pollen everywhere just to simply keep up with a demand. At that point, it just kind of becomes a moot point really to me, and it becomes all about me and with lesser quality genetics and, less about you, which is like the opposite of my mission with this podcast. So in the future, if my breeding skills progress to where I want them to be, and if I'm able to properly provide more seeds, then I'll do so, and I'll open it up to more people. So I'm super stoked about the upcoming episodes, man. I recorded a conversation with Autopot USA, which ended up being perfect timing because I'm new to their system and I'm growing in it for the first time. So I got to kind of ask them some like fresh questions and stuff like that and kind of go over the system with them. It's going to be a good episode if you guys are interested in that. I've also got a coupon code to save you guys 10%. Man, I wish I had that code before I bought mine, but it's all good. I don't get any kickback or commission from them, just an FYI. So please don't think I'm like pushing their product for a profit. I just really like the system, to be honest with you. And we've also got some other guests. We've got Grow the Cure for Cancer joining us in the next couple of weeks, which is probably one of my favorite conversations yet. It's different, and I think that's why I like it, but I'm interested in his type of story. So he says that he survived stage 4 cancer by using concentrated cannabis oil, or RSO, Rick Simpson oil, Phoenix Tears, whatever you want to label it, and actually walked away from chemotherapy and is cancer free now. So it's a fascinating story, and I'm really, really eager to get that out, and so you guys can hear it. It's a good conversation. We also have Michelangelo Grows coming up, who is a friend of Dr. Coco. Actually, Dr. Coco reached out to me and let me know that Michelangelo Grows would like to come on. So he referred him, and I recorded a conversation with him. We've got our very own Dr. Reefer Man coming on soon, and got some others lined up. But for this episode, we're going to be chatting with a grower from Instagram who goes by YourHomeGrownBud. And he grows really large autos in really large pots, which is really what caught my eye. It's really common to see most of us growing in 3 and 5 gallon pots and stuff like that. But this brother grows in 20 gallon pots, man. And he grows monsters too. So I want to preface the conversation by apologizing for the quality if it sounds a little weird to you. I forget to ask my guests to wear headphones because my voice ends up coming out of their speakers and it records on their end and it's trying to record on my end. And so the audio gets all funky. So I apologize if it sounds weird to you. I'll try to keep that in mind for now on. But nonetheless, please welcome to the Autoflower podcast, Your Homegrown Bud. Just how you got started, and have you always grown autos, or did you come out of photos? And just kind of give us a basic rundown of how you got into this.
All right. I'm still pretty new. We got legalization up here in Canada a couple of years ago, and I started kind of the following summer. My first round was photos. I got like a cheap Chinese light off Amazon and a 5x5 tent, and started a couple photos in, and it went quite well. I think I got like 10 ounces off the 3 plants, so it was decent. And then I was listening to tons of podcasts and reading Jeff Lowenfeld's books and learning more about autoflowers and how what was in some of the older books doesn't necessarily hold true for some of the newer genetics, so I figured I'd try them. And the second harvest was, I think, 22 ounces in over 3 months instead of the 10 over 5. So I decided to just kind of stick with that for a while. And the big pot thing kind of just started on the third round. I almost killed a seedling by overwatering it, and it kind of just was not doing anything in its solo cup for about a week. And then I was deciding whether I should compost it or put it into a bigger pot, and I threw it into a big 7-gallon pot, and it kind of exploded over the next week. And then a week later, I was like, well, it likes a big pot. Let's see what happens if I give it a really big pot. And then that one got to be a little over 400 grams at the end of the day, even though it was not growing for a whole week.
Really? That's amazing, man. Jeez.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Man, yeah, I saw that your pots, they look like horse troughs. They're so huge. What size pots are those?
They're like 20 gallons, and I might step back to 15 just because it's kind of awkward to get 4 in a tent with the size of the trays you need underneath them. But it seems like all the organic and build-a-soil guys are talking about, wanting a really big pot for living soil. So
yeah, because you're in living soil, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the big, you can't really do that in a 3-gallon so much as you could, like in a large pot, right? Doesn't kind of work like that.
Yeah, and I imagine if you're in a really big pot and you're paying for bottled nukes, that's a lot of money to water that whole pot into, and the plant's not necessarily going to use it all, right? Whereas with super soil, you just buy a 7-gallon bag for $30, and you only got to buy it once. You can keep reusing it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. So are you growing just one auto in this big 20-gallon pot?
Usually, yeah, 1 per pot. I had the last grow there were 2 other runty ones in solo cups too, and there was 3 actually, and I put all 3 in a big 20-gallon pot. Okay. When I planted mine outdoors, because we're only allowed 4 plants here, I chopped one of the runtiest of the 3 down and just let the big 2 go, or bigger of the 2, I guess you should say.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, I guess so. Take me through your growth. So you're starting in solo cups?
Yeah, usually in one of those little greenhouses that hold the peat pucks.
Right.
But honestly, even before, when I was germing in paper towels and then moving them into the peat puck, even if I got all of them to pop in a paper towel, they wouldn't necessarily all pop out of the puck. So I might try and do what Dan was talking about last time, where he soaks his pot 2 days before and then lets it sit and then just goes right into soil.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try that next.
Yeah, that's what I soak my seeds first, but I do that. I soak them for like 24 hours, and then I just stick them right into the dirt, into the soil.
Yeah.
And
then as you cut it down, like that root system will keep pumping up water for quite a while, and the soil stays moist. So I think even if you just drop the seed right beside the old stalk, you'd probably be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So you start in a solo cup, and then you transplant from that solo cup to your large final pot, or do you gradually go like 3, 5, 10, 20?
Usually to the final pot, except for the one exception last round there where I went to a big pot and then decided to go to an even bigger one.
Oh, I see.
So that was like a 7 gallon that ended up, I thought it was going to be the final pot, right? But then I put it into a 20 and then surrounded it with more new soil.
So how many days old roughly are you doing that then in that solo cup?
I think it would be a little over a week on average.
Over a week?
And then it's ready to come out of the solo cup, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, or do you more so kind of go off of looks of how big it is in relation to the cup?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of once the leaves are around the same size as the red solo cup. And usually I have like one of the clear solo cups inside the red one, right? So you can keep lifting it up and looking at the roots through the side of the clear cup.
Oh, dude, that's so smart. Is that a normal thing and I just never noticed?
I think I've seen other people doing that, and I ended up with
I haven't seen that. That's so smart.
that I had around. And then I just went to the store and bought red ones after and threw them in because I was worried about the sun hitting the roots or the light.
Yeah. That's such a good idea, though. I might have to steal that at some point in the future.
Yeah, then you can kind of leave the red one without holes too, and put holes in the bottom of the clear one. And then when you water it, you can like let it absorb for a while, and then just dump the leftover water out of the red one.
Yeah. So what are you putting in your cups? Are you putting that same living soil, and so you're just going right into the same soil?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then let me ask you this: when your seedling sprouts, I know that like the solo cup, it'll be wet and stuff, but how much do you let that dry before you start watering again? Before you'll give it its first watering?
I kind of go by weight. I wait till it's getting quite light.
As to not overwater, huh? I think I've overwatered quite a few times. And,
yeah, me too.
It can be detrimental.
Yeah, I think that's more detrimental than making the roots stretch to find some more water in the bottom.
Yeah. And then so when you water, are you just giving it just plain water, reverse osmosis, or is it filtered somehow?
So this round's a bit different because I was given a box of FOOP Organic Bioscience, which is like fish aquaculture based nutrients that you can water in. So I've been alternating that and water. Otherwise, I'll kind of alternate between RO water and like our city water is super hard. It's got a lot of calcium and magnesium in it, and it's kind of 7.2 pH. So I'll usually just pH that with kelp extract and then water that in.
Oh, I see. That's a pretty good idea. You're using the kelp extract as a pH rather than like a pH down solution.
Yeah, exactly. Works pretty good.
Oh, I should have done that. I just ordered a gallon of pH down. now I'm thinking like, cause that was like $35, man. It's a lot of money for me. But now I'm like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I need it. Oh, it's good to have around.
Yeah.
For when I'm not growing in super soil, it's good to have around. But yeah, so when you do pH the water, and then what are you doing it just to like 6.5 or 7?
Yeah, usually about 6.5, somewhere between 6.2 and 6.8. I'm not that picky because at the end of it, the plant will pH the root zone, but like the less energy it has to spend doing that, the better, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point too. You got some good little nuggets in here already, dude. So when you transplant, do you do anything special, like with any type of stuff, or any special feedings or mycorrhizal stuff or whatever?
Yeah, definitely mycorrhizal whenever I transplant it, and same with when the seeds go into the hole. I make sure there's some in the hole too, and then when it comes out of the solo cup, which is kind of one thing I liked about the solo cup, is because it gives you a whole bunch of roots to throw that powder on, right, and then throw it in the hole.
Yeah, another good point. Yeah, and then so when you transplant, do you just water like around the area where you're transplanting, or because I'm just imagining putting a solo cup into a 20-gallon bag or even a 10-gallon bag. Like, are you you soak that whole 20 gallons, or are you just watering around the edges of where the cup is to as the roots grow?
I soak the whole thing, and then I wait a long time until it gets light again, because it's going to take a while to take that water up. But it's good to have the soil moist, but not too moist, I think, so that the microbes will start munching on everything else that you've already put in there, right? And then when the roots get there, they can eat.
Yeah. So, well, then I had two thoughts at one time, because you're starting to talk about microbial life, and now I'm thinking about. I started listening to Teaming with Nutrients yesterday by Jeff Lowenfels, and on an audiobook.
Nice, yeah. Too.
Yeah, my head is in that area right now, so I'm. It's totally messing with my train of thought here. So when you say it's a long time, like, man, I would imagine like 20 gallons, dude. That's got to be like 2 or 3 weeks before you water again.
It's probably close to 2. Like, there's a lot of fan movement in there too, right? And it kind of evaporates out of the side. So the next time I'm probably more focusing on the side. And then I generally water until it takes a long time for the water to get to the bottom of a 20-gallon pot. So you kind of want to water it really slow. And you'll start to see it seeping out of the bottom, and that's kind of when I stop. And it'll usually end up being about maybe a centimeter in the bottom of the tray, and then that'll wick back up within an hour or 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point, because I learned that I pulled some roots out of some of my grows, and I noticed that like the roots, they just looked horrible for the size pot they were in. And I came to the conclusion that I was like, when I would water, I would just dump water out of my watering can in there, and it would I had so much perlite and everything in there, but it would just drain so quick that I don't think I was actually saturating 100% of the soil. I think it was dodging a lot of it and just going down channels or something that it created, you know what I mean? And then so a lot of the soil ended up staying dry, and it created these pockets. And so so I started to water slow, where it would, really take, with a 20-gallon pot, I imagine it would really probably take a minute. But even with like a 5-gallon pot, like I water so slow, it takes a minute to get down there. And then I noticed when I started watering like that like after I'd harvest and pull my roots out, like they would be filled, a lot more of that area in the pot. You know what I mean? You think it's because of slow watering like that?
Yeah, I think it takes a little while for all that water to work its way into all the little pore spaces of the soil. Otherwise, it's kind of pouring down past everything.
Yeah, it's like it just creates these like river channels almost in your soil, and it just.
Yeah, because there's definitely still room for more, because it's surprising how much that pot will wick back up afterwards.
Yeah, that's what's cool.
That's cool about times I was worried about overwatering, and I would shop back up all of that stuff, but then I realized the plant will take it back up anyways.
Yeah, especially if you're growing organic and you're not watering with salt nutrients and stuff, and you don't have to worry about watering to 20% runoff and all this stuff. You just water until your whole pot's saturated and let it draw the rest back up,
Yeah. And that's kind of why I started the mulch this time too, is to keep the top a little bit more moist, and the top was drying out a lot quicker than the bottom of the pot was.
Yeah, I saw that in your pictures. You've got like a really good layer of mulch in there.
Yeah, it's just alfalfa hay, and then there's some white clover growing too. It's just starting to come up through it now.
Oh, is that right? Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And what's the idea behind that? It just symbiotic relationship with your plant?
A couple things. Clover is a nitrogen fixer, so it's going to put nitrogen down in the root zone, and you can keep chopping it and letting it kind of fall over, and it's going to be like a perpetual source of mulch for you, essentially. But also, like, the fungi that's associating with your plant's roots also associates with the clover's roots. So if you have all those clovers also driving their roots down and establishing the fungal network, then you've got just a better soil food web going on.
Yeah, man, that's so fascinating, dude. That's why I want to read all of Jeff's books. It's so fascinating to me. It's a whole nother it's a whole nother universe. It's like this whole other realm of life that we just so easily overlook.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's so small compared to us from our perspective.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Like, I was listening to Tad Hussey interviewing a guy from Gold Leaf, and they even found that when they were growing the same cultivar in communal beds versus pots, they had better yields. And they figured it was because, plants like to be together, and if they're the same cultivar, then they would actually work together through the fungal.
Wow, that's fascinating, man.
Yeah, so I think eventually it would be cool to get one of those beds that fill your tent, like a lot of the really hardcore living soil guys have.
Yeah.
That's a lot of soil to move into the basement, though.
Oh man. What do you have underneath your plants then? You just got like a big tray under them, or a trash can lid, or what? I mean, those things are huge.
If you go to a hardware store for like $8, you can get a big saucer meant to go under hot water tank heaters. That's what I use, because the ones big enough for that at the hydro store are like $20 each.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's perfect. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that way you don't have to pull those, because you're not pulling those out and stuff unless you absolutely have to, right? I mean,
No, I pulled them up once at harvest time, and even like that it was heavy getting that thing up onto the chair to trim it at a comfortable height.
Oh, I'm sure, man. Okay. And then so like after 2 weeks, if your soil starts to dry out and your pot starts to get light, and then so you saturate the whole thing again, right?
Yeah, I don't go crazy though, right? Like I water really slow, and just when you start to see a little bit seeping out the bottom, that's usually when I stop, and it'll keep seeping for a little while, and it'll all get sucked back up. But right now it's working out to be about a gallon a day, but I'm only watering every 3 days. So it's kind of like 3 gallons, and I use one of those kind of 2-gallon sprayers, and I'll put half a gallon in one pot, half a gallon in another, half a gallon in another, and then go back to the first pot, right? So that, so that way you're doing it slower. You kind of know when it's done.
I like your method. Very, very productive and useful. Switching over, and that way you're not sitting there doing one at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about your lights, man, because you got some cool looking lights in there. What are you running in there?
The one tent is 4 Spider Farmer SF1000s. Mm-hmm. And that tent is 43 inches square, so it's just a bit smaller than a 4x4. It's like 12 and a half square feet, I think. Mm-hmm. So that one comes up to right around 65 micromoles per square foot or whatever that Dr. Coco says you shoot for. And then the 5x5 is 630 CMH.
Oh.
And I'm just running 2 of the 4200K master colors in there because apparently they have a bit better terpene production with a slight sacrifice in yield during flower.
So what is your opinion like on between the two, a CMH and an LED? Do you really see much of a difference now that the LEDs have gotten better? What do you think?
I think the same strain under the CMH last time definitely tasted amazing, but the heat is hard to deal with, and I had to shut that tent down for the heat wave that we had here a little while ago because I don't have central air in my house or anything like that. We just have one portable AC unit up in the top of the house.
Oh, wow.
For sleeping.
So that could be an issue, huh?
Yeah. Both of my tents suck in from the basement, which is pretty cool. It's usually like 65 down there, and then exhaust straight outside, which helps. But when it starts to get really hot in the house, you're sucking the inside basement air out so fast that I think eventually the hot house just heats up because you're sucking the hot air in through all your soffits and everything, right?
Yeah. So when you exit the air out of your house, are you using like a carbon filter?
Yes. Yeah.
That's cool. That's like legit setup, dude.
I'm actually thinking about trying to make my own because one of the problems I have with all these carbon filters is they last like a year and then you throw the whole thing out, including the canister. Oh. I work at a place where we do environmental remediation and we get carbon at a pretty good price and we use it for all kinds of smelly vapors that get exhausted. But it'd be cool to make my own canister so that every time I could just kind of dump the carbon in the compost pile, refill it, and hang it back up.
Heck yeah, that'd be cool.
It'd be way cheaper too.
Yeah, totally. So on your spider farmers, well, actually, let me chat with you about your CMH for a second, because I've never grown with that or looked into that really or anything. But it seems like everyone that I see growing with one of those is just like, they're just badass plants, you know?
They seem super happy under that light.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. But the heat though, so what do you do with it? Do you have like a fan, going in a whole separate cooling system for that light?
No, because the CMH, one of the benefits is they produce a lot of UV, and if you start putting a vented hood with glass on the bottom of it, you'll filter a lot of that out.
Oh.
And they don't make quite as much heat as an HPS, so generally they're not running vented hoods on CMHs.
Oh, okay. I just got it confused. That's a high pressure sodium light, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And on the guys that are running, 1,000-watt HPSs and inside, a lot of times they'll have vented hoods, and they're sealed, and the air just kind of goes right through it.
So the CMH is just it still gets hot, but it's just not as hot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. It almost feels like you're in a tanning booth when your arm's underneath it.
You probably would get a tan underneath of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's warnings on the bulb boxes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Do you wear protective like sunglasses and stuff when you go in?
I never did with the LEDs, but I feel like you kind of have to when you're sitting in front of the CMH tent. It's definitely an annoyance.
Yeah.
Or more, you feel it on your eyes.
Maybe one of these years in the far future from now, I'll grow with a CMH. I'd like to do that just to experience it. But by that time, LEDs will probably be so.
And that's kind of why it is. Like, the price was right. It's still efficient. I live in Canada, and heat isn't that bad. Power is cheap, and LEDs are advancing so fast that if I buy one now, in a year I could probably buy a better one for less money.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't buy a 4K TV when they first came out either, right? I waited for them to mature a bit and get cheap, and then I bought a nice one.
You sound like me, man. I just finally got a smart TV just a couple of months ago.
Right, yeah. I didn't buy that when it first came out. It was way too much money.
Yeah, I'm way behind. I'm just not rich. But
yeah, exactly. Me neither.
So how do you like those spider farmers, those F1000s? Because I'm actually like reviewing one of those right now. I guess you say review. I'm not testing it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm reviewing one, or I mean, really, it's just they just want to promote it, and they give you a light and ask you to document the grow. That's what's really going on. So I was like, well, hell yeah. So I got one. I'm going to give it away at the end of the contract when I'm done in a few months. But you're running 4 of those. What do you think of those lights?
I like them, and I'm only running 4 because I couldn't say, finances, right? I couldn't afford the 4,000 all at once, so I kind of got them over time. But in the end, even though it's a bit more expensive, I kind of like that you can set the height of each one to each plant that's above it as well.
Good point, yeah.
But they work really good, and they're not too hot. Plants like them. I just keep my LED tent a little bit warmer than the CMH tent, so that the leaf temperatures are still up there.
Yeah, like what around you trying to stay, like around 80 or something?
Yeah, I kind of try and keep the LED tent in like the 83 range, and the CMH, the fan runs a lot to try and do it, but it's kind of at 80. And I'll go down a little bit lower in flower, but the problem I have is it's really dry where I am too, so if I try and drop my temperature too much in flower, it'll be super dry in there, which is why I don't go super crazy on defoliation too, because I want a little bit of moisture coming off all the leaves. I kind of need it. Yeah, it'll get down to like 20% RH in there.
That's another really good point. Yeah, I have a humidity problem, a lack of humidity. I just ordered a new humidifier yesterday, a pretty decent sized one, and it's got like the little auto, you set your humidity level and it'll come on and off to keep that humidity. I ended up having to just pull the trigger and get one, man, because my humidity is getting down to like 32%.
Yeah, I have one of those too that I definitely have to run when the plants are small. Just like one of the tall Honeywell ones, right? But we have really hard water, so I go through those wicking filters super fast, which is annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that like, what do you think about that? Like, cause I've always never even paid attention to that. I've always come out here and looked, and it's like my humidity's at like 32%. And I'm like, that's fine. And I just walk away. But now I'm like, I'm trying to dial it in a little more than I used to.
Yeah, I try and stay on the low end of the VPD chart, but if it's towards the end of flower, I sweat that less than getting way too hot.
Yeah. So what, like, because I don't even really know all that VPD stuff. Like, what if my temperature? I try to keep my temperature like around 82. So, which is that's pretty easy for me to do, to keep it at 82 in here, but without spending a lot of money. That's pretty easy for me. But the humidity, it will spike. You know, when the temperature rises and drops day and night, it's like my humidity will drop down to 32, sometimes even like 29. And then but then like sometimes it'll spike up, I guess when the temperature fluctuates, it'll spike up to like, 58, 60, but not for very long at all. And then it'll drop back down.
When the lights come on and it starts heating all that air up in the space, it's going to plummet. And then when the lights come off and you've got all that moisture in the air and the temperature comes down, it's going to go through the roof. And that's what's nice about those fans that have the controller, so that when the lights come off, it's not just working on temperature, it's also looking at the humidity, and it'll run the fan. So like the AC Infinity ones, for example, you can set your high point for humidity to wherever you want. And if your light goes off and the humidity spikes, it'll pump that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on like, so is it bad if it's like 82 in here and I've got my lights on and the humidity is at like 30% and I've got seedlings that are only like 2 days old? Is that not a good environment?
It's definitely way in the red. It's not optimal.
Oh, good. Well, good. That thing's going to be here in a couple hours. So I'm going to like,
And that's kind
I'm
of
so glad I'm finally pulling the trigger on some of this stuff, man. I've just been afraid to like pull the trigger to really dial in my grow. It's just always been about money. I just never have the money.
Well, and I think when the plants are really sensitive to moisture when they're young is also when you can just put a dome over them, right? So you might not need to get the whole tent really moist. You could probably just put a dome over the plant that you're worried about.
Yeah. I'm also excited to have that thing out here just for my own body, man, because I spend so much time out here in my screen printing shop where I grow. I mean, this is where I'm sitting right now. I record my podcasts out here. I do everything out here. So I'm out here all day, and dude, like my skin is dry, man. My feet are like cracking, like there's cracks, dude, and like my hips get chapped. I drink way too much coffee, and I don't drink enough water. So I'm looking forward to that thing for myself too.
That's funny. I'm so bad for that too. I drink coffee all day long and rarely have a sip of water. Then I get home and I'm so thirsty.
Telling you, man, it is a legit thing that I've got to get my act together on, because I can't keep myself hydrated. I struggle with it because it's the coffee, man. I drink, like right now I've got this, let me see. It's like it's a 20 ounce mug, right? So I drink 2 of those in the morning.
Nice.
And then I'll drink another one at like 3:00 in the afternoon. Unless it's too hot, I'll drink one at like 5 in the afternoon. But I mean, it's 108 degrees here today, and I'm still drinking coffee. Man,
what I mean? That's hot. I couldn't do that. Even when it's like into the mid 80s here, it's like it's getting a little hot.
Well, we are under a heat wave, but last summer it got up to 113, and I was growing out there in that. It was hot, man. But,
how'd the plants do? Do they just stop growing, or do they?
No, they grew. I put a shade cloth over them, and they grew. I mean, I really can't tell you like a really legitimate end result like review, because the caterpillars like rotted the entire plant. So I had to throw the whole thing away from caterpillar, those tobacco budworm caterpillars. Those are the ones that burrow into your cola and eat it from the inside out, rather than a normal caterpillar that will just munch on your leaves.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's
such disappointment at the end of it.
Oh, it sucks. Yeah, there's nothing like that. You know, you just break the cola, it falls apart, and it just looks like someone sprinkled, you know, a bunch of black sand all over it from their poop, and you can see a bunch of them just wiggling around in there, and you're just like, ah.
Yeah, I saw a whole bunch of green caterpillars the other day on all of my radishes outside, but at least they're just radishes, so I pulled them and threw them in the compost bin and stuff.
There you go.
With a huge weed plant you've been growing all summer, that would suck.
Oh, dude, yeah. That's why I'm just like, it's hard for me to grow outdoors. It's just tough, you know. There's so much dead vegetation and stuff around me because it's so hot and dry here. I mean, there's like there's fire hazards here, and so I have a problem with thrips. I have a problem with aphids. They're attacking my hibiscus right now. That I'm going to have to battle them and get rid of them so I don't track them in here to my indoor grow, and they're just a pain in the ass. Yeah,
that's something I'm super paranoid about, getting bugs. My buddy had bugs in his grow, and he said they kept popping up after he thought he had dealt with it too and taken his tents down and sterilized everything and then put them back in. And I guess some of them were hiding somewhere in the house, so you got them again, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too. I've been pretty fortunate. Like when I grow indoors, I try to somewhat pay attention to, coming in and out and what I'm wearing and where I've been. But I haven't really had anything indoors other than like fungus gnats.
Yeah, I've had fungus gnats for sure. Yeah, they're just more of a nuisance than anything, I think, though.
Yeah, I agree. I've never really had like an issue with them necessarily, but they are just more of a nuisance. But other than that, I mean, even having like thrips and aphids outside on my back patio, I haven't, for some reason that I know of, I haven't brought them inside after, it's been a couple of years and I don't know.
Yeah, you're usually good about like changing before you go down to your indoor grow or anything like that?
Not necessarily, because I mean, I'll sit outside during the day near where those plants are, and they just, I don't know. I don't rub up against them, or if I go like inspect them, or if I'm trimming them, or I'm rubbing up against them, then yeah, I'll change and maybe even shower before I come into my grow, where my grow is.
If I mow the lawn first or something like that, and you're stirring up all the bugs that are in the grass.
Exactly. Or if I'm out trimming my palm trees or doing yard work, I'll never come into my grow area unless I shower and change first, So yeah, maybe that's why. But you know what I wanted to ask you was about so toward the end of your grow, you don't obviously worry about like flushing or anything, right?
No, anything, I still want stuff to be there because I'm going to grow in it again.
Yeah. So do your plants fade before you chop them?
Oh, yeah. They fade hard in the last couple of weeks.
Okay. So you just wait for that like natural fade?
Yeah. And the first couple of times I was really panicking and like, oh my God, I need more nitrogen. But eventually you kind of realize just to expect that it's going to come. Your big fat leaves are going to start yellowing and then it's going to work its way up the plant. And then you might get some cool purples. And that's actually my favorite time of the grow because you get all your buds are starting to get big and swollen. And it smells awesome. And then all the colors are changing too.
Yeah. Yeah. So what if it's not? Do you ever get plants that don't fade?
They fade in different ways, but they all are definitely mobilizing nutrients out of those old fan leaves. Some of them like won't go purple, or like that one Canuck cheese I did last time was like purple and yellow striping almost. It looked awesome. Whereas some other ones just went like a really pale green and then kind of started leaf curling and drying.
Yeah, that could almost make you panic if you're not. Do you go off of that, or do you just go off of like trichomes, or all? Do you go off of like a mix of things to harvest?
Trichomes, 100%.
What is your little threshold there? You like mostly cloudy with a little amber? Or?
Yeah, I like to start seeing a bit of amber, maybe like 10%, nothing too crazy, but I like to know that they're getting really ripe without even necessarily all of them being totally ripe. I don't want to go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've been harvesting too early, man. after all these grows I've done, and I think I still am just harvesting too early because it's like I want to wait for some amber, but sometimes I feel like it's not coming or something, and the plant starts, or maybe it's because I was growing with synthetics and I started flushing too soon.
Right. Yeah, I think it pays to wait because you get a lot of swelling in that last while too, right? So your buds are getting denser and just more mass.
Yeah, that is true. It's just hard.
I haven't tried that growing. I went straight to this mainly because I work out of town a lot for like 3 or 4 or 5 days at a time.
Yeah.
And I needed something that like someone would just be able to water them while I was away, and I wasn't going to have to like teach them some huge process.
Mm.
And then I actually went to Blue Mat drippers. Sorry, I guess we're getting off topic again, but those things work awesome.
No, what is that? I'm interested in
It's called a Blue Mat. And it looks like a little like plastic carrot with a ceramic tip at the bottom, and you fill them up with water and saturate the ceramic, and then you put them in the dirt and water them in. And you can either have them in like an elevated reservoir, just working with gravity, or a pump. And so you water them in, and they got like a little dial on the top, and you just dial that back, or first dial it open until it starts dripping, and then dial it back until it stops, and there's just like a hanging bead. And then it's basically just going to hold the soil moisture at that level. So whenever the soil dries out a bit, it's going to start dripping. And then when it gets to that moisture point, it's going to stop dripping. And it kind of just puts the plants in control of watering. I did that for the first grow, but now they're just drinking so much that I need to figure out a bigger reservoir to get that working again.
Oh, interesting. That's pretty cool. So it's like a self-feeding thing.
Yeah, it's like a dripper that doesn't run on a timer and doesn't even necessarily need a pump. And it'll just drip when the plant has dried the soil out a bit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
How much do those cost?
They're super cheap. The kits on Amazon are a bit pricey, but buying them at the hydro store was really cheap. And then I just found a whole bunch of the drip emitters on Amazon so that I could have one carrot kind of a few inches off to the side of the plant stock, and then have drippers surrounding the whole plant in the pot.
Dang, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, they work good. You're just not supposed to put anything biological through them because it'll start building up inside and clogging your lines.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to get this autopot system I have going and see how it runs.
Yeah, I'd like to try those eventually too. Those are supposed to be good for preventing fungus gnats because it's bottom watering and the top of your soil will stay dry.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing that I thought of as well. Yeah, they're cool so far. I mean, just setting it all up and looking at how it's going to operate is pretty exciting. There's a couple of things that I really wish having them here with me now that I wish, first of all, I wish I would have gotten the XL ones, the bigger ones. I still can, but I spent money on these, so I'm going to use them for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wish I would have gotten them because in the XL ones, they're all single instead of having 2 pots in one tray.
Okay.
Because I got to thinking, and I was like, okay, so if I'm growing 4 separate strains in these pots, right? There's 2 pots in one tray. So what if one strain is thirsty and it wants water, so it is going to open up that valve, but that's going to fill up the tray for the other one too, even though it doesn't need water or want water. So is the one that is thirsty, is it going to suck up all the water, making up for that other plant so that it doesn't get root rot? I mean, I want to have them on and ask them questions like that, but that's just the kind of stuff that's running through my head. So I kind of wish I would have just gotten the individual ones where it's a 1 pot and 1 tray with 1 valve.
Yeah, it's good thinking. I'm not really familiar with those things or how they work.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. And that's part of the thing too, is, you're kind of just buying them and going for it, I waited 6 months because I was researching it and wasn't sure and didn't know if I wanted to spend the money. And so I really was thorough about doing my research and reading other people's reviews and thoughts, but I just for some reason, I didn't even consider like, maybe I want something bigger than a 4-gallon pot, first of all. And then the fact that 2 of them are in one tray. But anyways, we're way off topic now. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll just see how it goes, man, But I can always get bigger pots and hook them up to my reservoir. And, and if I ever outgrow the reservoir, I've got a 55-gallon reservoir that is a dip tank for my screen printing equipment that I hardly use anymore. So, I mean, technically, I could just clean that out and fill it up with water and have water for a month.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think they even make like disposable liners meant for those kind of reservoirs that you can put in them.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah.
Then instead of sterilizing the whole thing all the time, they can pull the liner out.
Yeah. So what strains are you growing right now?
So right now I have Mephisto Canna Cheese, which is their new 1-to-1 CBD one.
Okay.
Then I have a Barney's Lemon Potion, which is also a 1-to-1, I believe. And then in the CMH tent, I have Dutch Passion Glueberry OG, which is Gorilla Glue crossed with blueberry.
Oh, okay. Dude, that lemon potion that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
is that the one where you posted a picture of that fan leaf on your hand?
Yeah, that thing's huge, eh?
So someone put Jurassic Park bud.
Yeah, I laughed when I saw that.
Oh, that's really what it looks like, man. It looks like you're holding some beastly weird thing out of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something, like some Jurassic Park plant. That thing is, dude, that leaf itself is twice the size at least of your hand.
Yeah, it's huge because it's like holding just 3 little fingers almost.
Yeah, 3 times the size of your hand. I mean, that thing is freakishly big.
Yeah, it's a healthy plant.
Damn. And that's an autoflower?
Yeah. And I bet you the blueberry will dwarf them. Like it just started to stretch as I was leaving.
Wow.
And I bet when I get back, it'll be way bigger.
How old is that thing?
The blueberry, I planted it a week after the other 2, and those 2 were July 6th. I think they came out of the dirt. Something like that.
That lemon potion is from July 6th. So it's, dang, dude. That's because you're in those huge pots.
Yeah, it seems like autos will grow significantly bigger in a large pot because like I grew that same lime strain in the 7-gallon pots before that, and kind of just doing an experiment. I topped 2 of them, and then I super cropped 1, and I bent 1, and then I just kind of wanted to see what that would do. All the same strain, but they're seeds, right? So they're not all the same genetics necessarily. And they all finished at the same time. They were all 5.5 to 6 ounces. The structure was just different, basically.
Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah, you know what? I think like if more of us grew in bigger pots, then more of us would obviously have bigger plants. But like a lot of autoflowers are kind of known to be grown in smaller pots and smaller areas and smaller tins. And you know what I mean? It's just kind of got that.
Yeah, especially if you're just like taking up space in your veg tent for.
Yeah.
You're just kind of putting one somewhere because it fits.
Yeah, so it's just got like this. It's just got like this smaller stigma stuck to it. It's like everything's smaller. But then you get to like a 20-gallon pot like you've got, and it's like this behemoth Jurassic Park plant.
I'm only allowed 4 plants, so I want 4 big plants, not 4 little plants.
Yeah, you may as well grow 4 trees.
Yeah, I definitely see the appeal of having tons of plants because, if gardening is your hobby and you like working on all those things, well, then you have like all kinds of different strains and training methods and stuff you can be doing simultaneously, right? And all kinds of experiments, but I can only do 4.
Yeah, that's like for me, I'm allowed 6. Well, I think it's per adult, but I mean, still.
Even that would be nice. For us, it's per household. And I don't think they make a distinction per flowering or veg either. Like, if I could have 4 in veg and 4 in flower, that would be cool too.
Yeah, that would be cool. Or what about even like 4 seedlings, and 4 that are a couple of weeks, a month out away,
Yeah, just so you can have them kind of ready to go in there when the other plants come out.
Yeah.
You can kind of start them right as you turn the lights off and start drying. And just have them on a little light elsewhere.
Right. How's that reversal going? I saw that you were reversing a plant.
Yeah, that thing looks really weird. I was reading that you could spray 3 things on them to reverse them. It was colloidal silver, silver thiosulfate, and because of what was going on in the world, colloidal silver was in high demand for whatever reason. I think people thought it was like a disinfectant or it would be healthy, and I think on the news it's even showing China was spraying colloidal silver in public areas.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up buying the gibberellic acid out of Holland. It was pretty cheap on Amazon. Then I mixed up a little batch and sprayed it on there. I only sprayed like the main top, thinking that I could just get like some pollen coming off the top, dropping down on the rest of the plant, and I'd get a ton of seeds. But the whole plant has nanners everywhere.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, and it like did weird stretching where it'll have like almost like a petiole going up and then just like a little calyx hanging from it. Like growth I've never seen before. And it got really leafy.
Interesting.
It looks like the pistils are starting to curl up a bit now, so I'm assuming it worked and I should get a bunch of seeds. And those are those Dutch passion limes again. The same as that, the big one inside.
Yeah. So you're pollinating like a different plant with it?
No, I'm just selfing itself.
Selfing itself? Okay.
Plants to it.
So you'll just have a bunch of feminized seeds.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You can breed a plant with itself?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, like sometimes they'll even take a cutting of one, spray it, and then so you get the sacs or pollen for the cutting, and then they'll take that back to the plant that they cut it off of. And I think there's all kinds of different ways to do it, and I'm no expert. This is the first time I've ever tried it.
Yeah.
I tried to get the timing right. They said you were supposed to spray it kind of like right as it's sexing, showing sex.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's definitely a weird looking plant. And I planted 3 of those seeds at the same time. And then when they all popped, I picked a really vigorous one and gave 2 away to friends. And they look like they're about a week from finishing. And I don't think mine are anywhere near that close.
That'll be interesting to see how it turns out, though, like the seeds that you get.
Yeah, it was a shame. We got like marble sized hail. And it just destroyed that plant. So that's another thing that makes it look really ragged now. Is like all the fan leaves have almost been stripped off of it.
Oh, bummer.
What some people do that indoors on purpose, right? So I figured it can't be the end of the world.
Yeah, true. Good point. That's
another tip I would say for people to try is insect frass for the base of their compost tea. A lot of people use worm casting.
Okay.
Insect frass, I don't get nearly as many fungus gnat problems that I used to get. It has 3 times the amount of microbes on a fresh sample as worm castings do, according to Tad Hussey, I think, from Kiss Organics. And then you get that chitinase, which the plant senses as like a bug attack, essentially. And it's a systematic response.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it works awesome. And then you get a bunch of life in your soil that's like breaking down chitin. Which is like bug shells. So it's probably a less hospitable environment for things like gnats crawling around through too, I would imagine.
Yeah. What is insect frass? What is that?
It's like the byproduct of, a lot of times they'll use black soldier flies and they'll take the larva and they use that as chicken feed. And then the frass is like all the little shells that they've molted, the exoskeletons, and then their poo, basically.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, I think they have like cricket stuff, and black soldier fly is pretty common. That's the one I got. There's like a huge facility in town here that just got built. I think it's like an $18 million facility. But my friend got contracted to be a millwright there, and he gave me a big pail of fresh frass, and it works awesome.
Man, what a way to like recycle nature and life.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, hey, man, thank you again for your time, and I hope you'll consider coming back on in the future.
Yeah, definitely when it was fun.
Thank you, as always, for listening. Your receptive ears make my gizzards tingle. I really appreciate you all. Without you, I'm just a dork recording myself, and there's no one to hear it. So you are the ones who make this podcast what it is, and I am grateful to you, and I am grateful to host it. So be sure to follow Your Homegrown Bud on Instagram and follow the podcast on social media. Links are all in the show notes. Until next time, love your plants, love one another. See ya.
It's what I hate about the war on drugs. I'll be honest with you. It's what I can't stand is all day long we see those commercials. Here's your brain on drugs. Just say no. Why do you think they call it dope? And then the next commercial is this bud's for you. Come on, everybody. Let's be hypocritical bastards. It's okay to drink your drug. Nicotine, alcohol, good drugs. Coincidentally, tax drugs. Ooh, how does this fucking work?